I think someone at Gaijin is going to get into some pretty big trouble because that leak list has proven to be incredibly accurate. Now, normally I don't pay attention to those lists. It's just, at least to me, it kind of feels like someone's looking for like their 5 minutes of fame. But this time, oh no, it's pretty accurate. I'm sure someone at Gaijin they might go on a witch hunt, knowing them as well as I do, but who knows? But with that being said, it is about 6 a.m. my time when I got this notification that the T-80 UE1 has been introduced in the dev server, and I want to give you guys a bit of a sneak peek into this vehicle. But as always, before I dive into this talking head mostly, I won't be having any gameplay in the background. It probably won't benefit us to do that because this vehicle isn't complete yet, and I don't want to give you guys a false expectation of how it may perform. But if you play War Thunder, you should know how the T-80s play. But continuing on, seeing that this is the dev server, please take everything with a grain of salt. Things are going to change. Things might improve. They might get worse. Battle ratings might move around. Who knows? Really, we won't come to find out until the actual update drops or Gaijin gives us some definitive information. So again, please take everything with a huge grain of salt, and as always, I will be injecting my own personal opinions and experiences in this game, and more so in this video. Oh, and one more thing. Yes, I understand this is a premium vehicle, and no, I'm not making this video trying to up my sales for my 3%. I understand it may come off like that. Really, this update is incredibly lacking for when it comes to ground forces. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but when the majority of the hyped up vehicles coming into the game are premiums, it kind of comes off as me trying to be a little shilly. But you know what? I gotta get paid too. So if you do buy this damn thing, use my code, would you? And with that out of the way, let's dive into the details of the T-80 UE1 and what I assume is going to be a just another T-80 in the game. Now, as you can see in this lineup, this is the 8th T-80 coming into the game. Let me start from left to right. We have the recently added T-80UD, which is a monster of a vehicle. I'm not trying to sell it, I promise. This thing is great. I absolutely love it. It comes out with me at 10.0, and in truth, it doesn't really belong there, but it's a premium, so it probably won't move. Then we have the Squadron T-80UK. You should know this. It's pretty much the same thing as everything else, and the APS is pretty all right for the most part. And then we have the top dog, the BBM, the endgame T-80 for the time being. I assume that's going to change at some point in the very near future as there are more modern variants of the T-80 BBM. And then we have the Tech Tree T-80U, which has been around for years now and is still a formidable vehicle even at its own battle rating, even though this thing has gone up over the years too alongside everything else. The original T-80B, the event T-80UM2, which is my baby, by the way. I love this thing, and that APS has actually saved my butt quite a few times. Unfortunately, I think the only prototype of this vehicle was destroyed sometime in 2022 in a specific conflict happening in Eastern Europe. I don't go into detail about it because it brings up a lot of weird feelings. And then we have the Object 292, which is pretty much a T-80U, but with a really, really big gun. The chassis is the T-80U, and the turret, I believe, is it the UD or the BVM? It's one of the two for the most part, which makes this turret really tanky. But when it comes to the T-80 UE1's features that really won't impact the way it performs in the game, but I'm going to bring up the details anyway. From what I read, this is basically the standard T-80U hull, the turret of the BBM, which doesn't really change too much anyway. I mean, they're the same. I think the T-80U original has a better turret. One of the two, for that matter. But then again, it is surrounded, of course, by Contact 5, but we'll get more into that in a quick second. It does have a new gun, actually the 2A46M4 versus what you would find with the original T-80U, the 46M1. Now, from what I read, it allows to fire more modern projectile types and programmable fuses. that's not going to be represented in the game. It still has its 6.5 seconds of reload, as you would find with all the other T-80s, minus the T-80B and the Object 292. Of course, it has a better thermal sight. It should have a Generation 2. Unfortunately, it's not reflected right now because this is the dev server. You still fire, of course, as mentioned already, the 3BM46, which is a capable round. I mean, this thing is great. You still have laser rangefinder, no tandem warhead missile. I think that might change. I'm pretty sure this might get the same one found on the BVM, although I doubt it, but we'll see. And it also gets the same power pack as found on the BVM. Unfortunately, it's not really going to reflect too much. I would think it still has the same max forward speed of 70 kilometers and reverse of 11. The engine is still the same gas turbine. What is it? GTD 1250. Same thing. T-80U. Yeah, it's all the same. But in typical T-80U fashion, you have, at least for the time being, and this might change, terrible vertical targeting speed, at least right now, 3.7 degrees versus the BVM's 34, which I believe is the best in the game. Or I think that goes over the T-90 at around 40 degrees, which is pretty freaking insane. Those snapshots are really awesome to have. You won't be having that with this variant, I would well imagine. The optics, I think, should still be the same. Yeah. That might change because it is, of course, a more advanced set of optics. So it might improve, it might get worse, who knows? Oh, and this is going to just be a guess, an educated guess. The E would probably stand for export, as from what I read, this is more or less an amalgamation of existing T-80U hulls, B turrets, just to get rid of them. Like, they put them together, they slapped them and said, all right, let's just give it a small buff in some areas and try to sell them in the export market. Did it work? I have no idea. But the big question is, what is this going to do for top tier? I don't think it's going to change much. It's not going to be a situation like the Americans where they brought in the clickbait, which completely destroyed the win rate for the Americans. I mean, no insult to those who bought it. It's just, unfortunately, those who have no idea what the hell they are doing in top tier are playing with one of the most advanced vehicles in the game. And again, having no idea what they're doing, getting destroyed, leaving it to the first or second death, and leaving the rest of us to kind of suffer a little bit. But here's the thing about the Abrams. That tank is easy to kill. You pop it in the neck, it's dead. You shoot it in the sprocket area, if it's slightly angled, the spalling is absolutely nuts. The T-80s in the game, and this is where I'm going to put on my tinfoil hat, they don't like to pop too much. If you shoot it in the center, don't tell me you haven't shot at a T-80 and the shell's gone all the way through, simply to just do nothing or very minimal damage. Now, of course, if this had its modeled autoloader, it would disable it, which would give you an advantage over the vehicle, but it's not reflected in the T-80s, which is kind of convenient seeing that the T-90s got it, yet the premium is the one that also did not get it. But I'll jump into that detail a little bit later when the server drops, or the update drops in the server. But the one bit that really makes this vehicle, in my opinion, superior to even that of the Abrams is the armor. This thing can tank some hits. M829A2 will have a hard time going through this upper front plate on the first shot at times. DN53 will struggle too. You'd be amazed how Contact 5 can just nullify the existence of even some of the best shells in the game. Even the 292, I think, would have a struggle against this in some respective areas. Although in typical T-80, T-72, T-90 fashion, the lower front plate, the driver's port are always going to be very exposed. Although I would never recommend the driver's port because I've had too many damn iffy shots with that. Lower plate, breech mechanism, side sprocket if they're angled, will usually do this vehicle in. If you're unlucky, it'll go through and not do too much. Trust me, I've been through that plenty. But here's where I'm going to get a little bit personal. I might go off on a tangent, so I do apologize ahead of time for that. I don't agree with 11.3 premium vehicles. I thought it was an absolute mistake. I mean, we just got the KVT, we just got the T-80UD, we got all these pretty premiums, and yet every nation in the game is gonna get some. We already got some for Israel with the Ram Segal. We have, of course, the 2A4M. We also have the clickbait, the OES. I mean, every nation is now going to get a top tier premium vehicle, which does destabilize the top tier environment. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of you guys in here that will tell me, oh, it's just a skill issue. Oh, it's if you're losing against premiums, blah, 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 right? But the point is, it makes the game way too quick. I mean, granted, these vehicles are fast, right? It's speed and mobility is key to top tier, whereas around what, 6.7, 7.7, armor is kind of what matters, angling yourself appropriately. For top tier, it's speed. But at this point, I would be yelling at a brick wall because this is going to keep happening. We're going to get a French premium, which is my guess going to be a premium Leclerc or some sort of, I don't know, a PSO type vehicle for the French. We'll be getting something more for the Italians. I'd well imagine China will most certainly be getting, my guess is maybe the 96B. Yeah, it would make sense to make this a premium. So if you're like myself and you're frustrated with all these new high tier premiums, I'm sorry to say we have to get over it. And we have to get over it now because it's happening. It's gonna keep going. It might get a little worse as time goes on, but it's gonna keep happening. And I'm sorry if it's coming off as a little rough. I'm more of a realist and I'll get over it eventually. But that's it for when it comes to this talking head. And I want to thank you guys so much for taking the time to listen to these, to watch these. I know they're not engaging. I know, trust me, I understand how boring some of these videos can be, which is why I do my best to make it not as fun as possible, but right to the point. And you guys have pointed that out for me as well. And I do appreciate those compliments. And this might be the last dev overview for at least this round of the dev server until this coming weekend. I am planning on working on a Canadian vehicle next. I won't tell you what it is, but keep an eye out for that next release, which should be around maybe even tomorrow or Thursday. We'll see more about that soon. But if you guys happen to have enjoyed everything and you want to continue supporting me as a creator, as always, don't forget my 3% to like and subscribe so as to get this video out there. I understand these videos don't do too hot in the views department, but it really would mean the world to me if you guys would drop a comment for the algorithm and say hi, throw up your favorite emote, and more importantly, let me know what you think about these vehicles, because I'm genuinely curious on what you guys think about it. And if you can educate me, throw in some information about this vehicle, I will heart it, I promise. And also the Patreon side of things, Discord, you know, the whole spiel. But again, with all that being said, thank you again, and I will see you not only in the next video or even the streams, but most certainly in the upper BRs of War Thunder. And you can bet I'll be making a video on this thing when it releases. I'll see you next time.